My name is John Brettle, and up until about a year or two ago, I never really considered myself a salesperson. I am currently the general manager at Pro Audio in Provo, Utah. It's actually called Pro Audio and Pro 4x4, but we typically answer the phone Pro Audio. I've only been actually in this current job for about 2.5 weeks. However, I have been in this industry for over 30 years, and my primary job when I started in the industry was as a 12-volt technician and fabricator. But even since the beginning, I have always had some kind of part in being a salesperson, just helping close sales, talking to clients about what we're going to do to their vehicle, that kind of thing. Even as a 12-volt tech and fabricator, I was I was always selling, and I'd never realized it, but I was just always helping to sell the job and sell myself to the client. So for the last 8.5 months prior to joining the crew and the team at Pro Audio and Pro 4x4, I was a sales manager at a local tent world. We're going to rewind just a little bit back to 2019 when I started my own business. Business is called the Meshman LLC. And I realized at that point that I would really have to be a salesperson. I spent a lot of time, probably 85 to 90% of my time as I run that business is spent as the main salesman, as the only salesman. You got to sell product, you got to make money, you got to earn profit. However, if the client's not happy, then you've done a bad job. So I started the Meshman when I was working at Cartoons of Atlanta. I was there for almost 16 years, and that is where I really started to develop and learn how to sell. And I was, a fabricator, technician. I was a bay manager there for a while, but I was always involved in the sale. While I was at Tent World, I was realizing that it wasn't fulfilling me and what I felt like my skill set could do. And so I started looking around at, other options for a job or employment, and a couple of industry jobs popped up, and one of them I applied for, and it was supposed to be for a tech support slash trainer slash social media person, that kind of thing. And I thought, oh, that's something I can do. I can fit into that. And so at the time when this job was posted, this same company was not only looking for a tech support person, but they were also looking for a regional salesperson. And I applied for the tech support person because, again, I didn't really consider myself a salesperson. So anyway, during this interview, the person running the interview paused and said, "Hey, John, let me ask you a question." He said, "Why are you not applying for the sales position?" I said, "No, because I don't consider myself a salesperson." And he looked at me and said, "You could have fooled me." And I think that's when it actually clicked. So one of the biggest challenges that I've had to overcome in the last year was probably making that transition back into the brick and mortar retail store. When we moved out from Atlanta out to Utah, I spent a year just working on my business, the Meshman, and growing that really well, but just not growing it fast enough. So I wasn't earning the income that I needed to earn. So that's when I saw the position at Tent World show up, and I thought, hey, this might be a good opportunity. I said I kind of quickly discovered that I needed to do something more. Just it wasn't my thing. I just wasn't fulfilled. My good friend that I've known for a long time, Colton, actually works at Pro Audio, and we had talked a few times, and he'd mentioned, hey, they'd love to have you come down here and help out and all this stuff. I wasn't sure if I was ready to make that transition down to another new place of employment. I've never been one that just worked somewhere, for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year, or even 2 or 3 years, and it's like, you know what, this isn't working. I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else. I'd hate bouncing around. I usually give it my all when I get to the place that I'm working at. And it took me a little while. And finally, one of the conversations that Colton and I had just kind of was enough for me to realize, okay, it's time to do this and time to make this happen. So those two things are kind of the biggest challenge. One, getting back into the brick and mortar retail world, and then two, realizing that I need to move on. I need to go, somewhere that could really use or utilize my skill set. So what would everybody that I work with currently think of me? That's an interesting, interesting question, seeing as I've only been there about 2.5 weeks. However, I have known, like I said, Colton for a few years. When I was strictly running the Meshman business, I was doing some business with them through Colton. So I traveled to the store, probably 3 or 4 times over that year, and so I, at least got to meet the people that were there. But being there for this, couple weeks, I have had a couple people come up to me and just say, "Hey, man, very glad you're here. I can already feel a change coming. I can already see things, running smoother, that kind of thing." So that's a great feeling, but it's also it's a lot to live up to. So I'm going to do my best and just continue to help try to grow this already successful business. And I think that by them seeing how motivated I am to try to increase business, increase productivity, make things run a little bit smoother, increase efficiency, that kind of thing. I think just them seeing that, them being not only my coworkers or the employees there, but also ownership, I think that helps to influence them to just want to do the same. I just try to be real with people, honest. I get to know them. I also get to know their vehicle because we're in a vehicle industry. I find ways to talk about their car, whether it's a car I like or don't like. It's their car, so I have to realize that and realize that this is something that they cherish maybe, or it's their it could be their daily driver and it's a beater, but it's theirs. And make sure I go out and I take a look at the car, or we talk about the car and the things that they like and they don't like about the car. Anything to engage them in a more personal experience to open them up a little bit more. One thing that I definitely always do is, let's say somebody comes in and they want a radio install. I always start with anything that I know has to happen in order to put any radio in the car before I even talk about a radio, kit, harness, that kind of thing, and the labor. And then I will address that to them and just say, okay, so just to let you know, doesn't matter what radio you pick or where we go from here. These are the things that we have to put in there. These are the must-have parts and the labor to install whatever we decide on. And I give them that price. And that way they know going forward kind of where they stand. And by going that way, it always gives them the feeling of, I think, one, knowing what I'm talking about, two, allowing them to make the decision themselves. And I do the same thing with amps or speakers, right? Start out with the speaker plate, the speaker adapter plate. Start out with the sound ending. Start out with all the stuff that has to go along with it, and then you talk about speakers. And when it comes to speakers, I don't even talk about speakers. It's kind of, because I'm not selling a brand of speaker. What I'm selling them is the sound they're looking for. So that's another, technique. The fact that I was very personable and personal with them. I tried to create a relationship, a professional relationship, that is, with them, to understand their wants and their needs, and that hopefully I've done everything I can to fulfill that want or that need. I want them to think of me as a professional friend that can, help them out when they need. If I'm going to name one or two, we'll start with Chris McNulty. I have known him for the majority of my career. We are good friends. We talk probably 2 to 3 times a week, if not more. We constantly bounce ideas off of each other. We have a good back and forth. And so it's really helped me to grow, especially in these past couple of years when I've been trying to grow more as a salesperson, or as just anybody in the 12-volt industry. Somebody else that I can look back and definitely get influence as far as a salesperson goes would be Ken Ward. He's a great teacher when it comes to sales. I remember sitting in one of his Knowledge Fest classes, and it was he went through his steps of how to identify the different clients. And what I took away from it was just realizing that all clients are different. First, figure out what kind of person they are so you know how to talk to them. It's just a matter of finding those nuances and figuring that out. And that's something that I really picked up from Ken. Last question is, why should I be considered a top 20 sales pro? I'm a hardworking and constantly evolving individual that can adapt to just about any situation or client. And well, honestly, if I haven't sold you on the reason from the previous several minutes, maybe I don't. But hey, Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and thank you for your consideration.